just to see a few people coming into the room. Hope everyone's having a good week. I was going to ask if anyone's watching the Traitors, Celebrity Traitors at the moment. I'm a bit obsessed with that. Me and my wife are, so.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is good. See people coming in, thank you. Another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll get going. Cool, okay. So we will get going because we're a minute or so in, and we've got quite a bit to cover today. So first off, thank you very much for those that have joined so far. We were just saying, kind of before we jumped onto the broadcast side of things, was how actually we find these internally, we find these really interesting as well with regards to researching and finding out about these topics. So we're hoping that we can really offer some value to you today about, which is a real interesting and important topic of what impact of AI will have on paid ads for memberships in 2026. So we're going to get going now. So obviously, again, thank you for joining. Really brief intro. So Copperbay Digital, member growth agency focused on driving membership growth for associations and memberships. We've been supporting organizations with member and customer acquisition since 2008 as an organization. And our mission, really kind of core to what we do, core to how we set ourselves up, is to help 10 million members realize a benefit of their membership. So 10 million of your members realize a benefit of their membership by 2034. So everything we do is focused on that. Today we've got myself, Chris, and we've also got Joe and Jay on the call, all part of our kind of member experiences team, and how we're driving, how I can help kind of drive paid ads performance and acquisition. So just wanted to kind of quick admin point to say, please ask questions. So in the top right hand corner of your screen, you should see a kind of question mark, and in there you can ask questions, and you can also upvote other people's questions as well. So if there's anything in there you're really interested in asking, or you see a question from someone else, or you want to ask it yourself, please put those questions in there. We're going to answer all those questions at the end, but if we can build those up as you go, that'd be really useful. And then we can make sure we get your question answered. So today we're going to cover how managing ads will change in 2026. So the kind of what we've seen coming forward, what we're starting to do now, what we're seeing going forward, and how we're actually managing your campaigns and your ads change in the next year. We're also on the other side of that coin is also seeing what the impact of AI has on your ad performance. So what's changing in the search engines, what's user behavior like. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to come some practical steps, what you should do now. And then a Q&A at the end, as mentioned. So that's the kind of areas we're going to cover. So just very briefly, just to start off, most people will already know kind of this. So current landscape of paid advertising, so digital paid advertising is a core marketing strategy. Now, we would say this because we run the campaigns, but we truly believe that a really strong marketing campaigns will include an element of paid media, paid advertising. And we see the results in that. So at the moment, a lot of manual work is still significant in campaign management, a lot of manual tasks to kind of manage those campaigns, which kind of is one of the key things that is changing in the future. So we're going to talk about that. Management focused on things like research, segmentation, bidding, obviously reporting, and just understanding what's going off. So a lot of like manual tasks are going off at the moment. AI is already being used. Google, the likes of Google will be talking about how they've used AI for a long time with certain campaign types. But it's more for automation, but human strategy is still key to running a campaign. And as the point of this presentation is a major shift in ad management is expected soon. Hence, this is what we're going to talk about today. So I'm just going to briefly hand over to Joe, and Joe's going to kind of talk about kind of what will change in the way ads are managed in 2026.
Cool, thanks, Chris. So So yeah, as we've already talked about, we do see a big change in the way sort of paid ads managers will manage campaigns in the coming year, and leaning more into the technology that's been available for a while. So with AI, it's already a helpful tool for marketers in a lot of ways. So, you know, we're already using it more and more externally for research, analytics, and ad copywriting, things like that. But what we see being the biggest change is AI actually becoming the central driving force within paid ads campaigns. The goal for platforms like Meta and Google is to enable paid ads managers to create an account, create a campaign, tell it your business goals, and give it a budget, and just let AI and its machine learning handle everything else. But we're going to look at how we can do that, but it probably won't be as easy as that. There'll be other elements to consider to get the most out of your ads as well. So I'm going to go through some of the key areas where we see that the biggest changes happening. So the first point here is that move from being very human-led to full automation. And this is where AI can potentially take over the more like granular, the time-consuming tasks that people that are managing ads currently handle themselves, which is a bit of an opportunity in itself, just to kind of save time and unlock some new opportunities. The first of these being predictive analytics. So currently we're quite reactive in the sense that we can review historical data, look back at what's been performing well or what's not worked in the last sort of days, weeks, months, and years. But with AI in place, it can actually use that historical data and use real-time data at the same time to better forecast actually what is going to work and what audiences are more likely to convert. So we can be a lot more predictive with what we're doing. And I think that's a really exciting prospect. Secondly, there'll be more room for dynamic creative generation. So obviously AI and creating images and videos is changing really, really rapidly. And at the moment, we can kind of dynamically provide different creative within ads by giving it lots of different ad variations. But what we see changing is that the AI within the platforms will actually be able to generate different images, ad copy, headlines, and even video in minutes. So it will really speed up that process. And once it's actually created that content for us, it'll be able to showcase, optimize, and test it in real time, and showing the right creative to the right person to get maximum effect. And finally, we see there being a move to more AI-driven targeting and bidding. So again, something that is currently very hands-on in terms of deciding who we're going to target, testing different audiences and different bid strategies. AI will be able to analyze a lot more of that data a lot faster. So it can actually help us identify really niche, high-value audiences for businesses that would be really quite hard to find manually at the moment. Not impossible, but again, it would take a lot more time. So we'll be able to automatically adjust those bids, move things around, allocate budgets very differently, and a lot faster to get the best return on ad spend within the campaigns. Secondly, the point is around being able to sort of tap into hyper-personalization and being able to do this at scale. So personalization as a strategy is nothing new, but we know how important it is. And it's something that is used a lot within email marketing quite readily now by a lot of brands. So, you know, you're tapping into your CRM data and showing messaging that kind of uses a customer's name or might show them products that they've seen before. So being able to sort of replicate that experience in ads is a big opportunity with the use of AI. So previously pretty unimaginable with what we've done in ads. We'll be able to analyze users' preferences, past behaviors in terms of search, and again, use that real-time data to give more of a one-to-one experience within the search space. So that ultimately, we know that personalization really works for increasing engagement and ultimately give better conversion rates in the end. The third point here is around sort of data and reporting and moving away from third-party cookies and really focusing priority on first-party data. So with the decline in third-party cookies and changes in consent laws recently, we do have a lot less visibility on sort of ads traffic and where people are coming from. And there is a lot more questions now in sort of what a true ROI looks like, because we're not able to track in the same way that we were used to. But with AI in place, we're able to use that technology to analyze and leverage our first-party data. And that's going to be a really good competitive advantage for membership organizations and any business that can really tap into that. Your first-party data, so whether that's your website or your app or your CRM, is your best source for basically telling platforms like Google and Meta and whatever you're using who your customers are. So you can go out and find more of them. there's so much in there. So I think the companies that can really use that, plug that in the right ways, can create really highly relevant personal ad campaigns while respecting users' privacy at the same time. So that's a really key one. The next one is more about different ad formats and features that use AI within ad platforms. So again, this probably isn't like a full suite of everything that's available. We wanted to give a bit of a snapshot on the different ways that different ad platforms are sort of creating and using AI within what they've currently got, and different ways we can kind of make the most of it. So the first one here is Google's AI Max, which is for search campaigns. So you might have already heard about this, but it's not really a campaign type as such. It's more of a suite of AI features that you can switch on within your existing search campaign. So that's really, really good, because it means you've kind of got a lot more data within those campaigns already. You're not sort of starting from scratch in that respect. So what AI Max will enable us to do is expand our search term matching and be a lot more tailored with the different search terms and finding those niche audiences that we talked about. And that can be done based on the assets that you provide it, the landing pages, to really give Google as many signals as possible. And as part of that, then what AI Max can do is sort of generate personalized headlines and descriptions, all based on the user's exact query in real time. And it will also hopefully give us some more advanced sort of visibility and reporting on exactly what personalized headline it's giving for each search term. And secondly, I mean, these next two are a little bit more sort of retail and e-commerce focused, but I think it's still worth including just in case you might have an e-commerce element to your membership. So what Meta are doing is leaning into their Advantage Plus suite of campaigns and ads. And the Advantage Plus catalog ads is basically being able to generate more dynamic creative using the product feed. So as long as you upload a really good quality product feed with as much information as possible, and including images and lots of detail, the AI within Meta can actually take that feed and generate unique single images, carousels, and videos using the data that's in your feed to again give that really personalized ad that they think is going to be really relevant to the user. And the third one here is within Microsoft, and this is their showroom ads. And this is basically replicating a physical product showroom within their Copilot chat interface. So this is more for people that are in that research stage, that are in Copilot, they're chatting and they're saying, they're asking questions about a product or a service or maybe a type of membership that they're looking for. And they're actually being given a few different options, and they're asking the chat for more information on this, or can you compare this one to this one, or what's the difference in this, and what other prices are out there. So when they're in that research stage, it's giving them that kind of replica of being in a showroom, having a one-to-one sort of sales representative, and that can kind of be done sort of by a brand representative, all without leaving that chat space. So that's really interesting. I feel like that's a way that maybe things are going, and it's really tapping into the way that people are asking more questions within chatbots. And finally, kind of with all of this, it's really important to think about the ethics and sort of the privacy side of the way that we're using AI, and ethical use of the technology that we're being given is going to become really important. So you need to think about things like algorithm bias. So this is where obviously we're saying that it's really important to use your first-party data, but if that's all you're giving it and you're relying on just that, there is always that risk that you're going to target maybe too small a minority of people. So as an example, if your current membership base is say 80% male and 20% female, but you want to kind of level that out a bit and go after more females, if you're only giving it your existing data, the AI isn't going to work that out for itself. It's going to just go after the data you give it. So you really need to be balancing this with your goals and giving it that sort of that human element, and making sure you're not giving it you're not leaning into algorithm bias. And obviously data privacy will also need careful management to make sure that everything's aligned with GDPR, and that everybody in the team that's working on it will be really transparent about the way they're using AI, and making sure you're still prioritizing consumer trust through all of this. So it's something that we're going to be committed to with everything that we're doing with AI, and it's important that your companies are as well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Next, Jay is going to kind of talk about the kind of what that means, I guess, for managing those campaigns going forward.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Joe. So yeah, Joe's gone through where AI is heading. So I wanted to sort of go through the day-to-day campaigns. So the shift towards automation isn't going to happen overnight. Each platform's going through their own pace and their own AI-powered system as well. So we're moving mainly away from managing keywords and bids at a smaller level to managing the inputs and signals that we're actually forcing back into the system to feed the AI systems. So our role really becomes about the quality and feeding the system with the right data and the creative assets and really having clear goals in these campaigns as well. So moving on to Google as the main as the first one, industry leader really. Google are making sort of the biggest shifts in this area. Everything's moving towards Performance Max, Demand Gen, and now AI Max as well. So they're AI-driven campaigns. Our focus within this area has really been focused on the clean first-party data that Joe was mentioning previously. So this is really, really important to ensure that the campaigns that we're running are really delivering some results for you further down the line. So that's really, really important. The creative asset management as well. So making sure that we're providing high quality images, videos, and headlines for Google's AI to be able to test those combinations. Now they can test as many variations as possible, but that strategic input that we'd be able to add in is invaluable for the system and the campaigns to work as well as they can. And then also prompt engineering. So we're internally really trying to focus on developing our own skills on how we can effectively brief these AI systems in order to provide high quality and accurate prompts to basically create the best versions of your campaigns. So like I said before, we can generate, the AI systems can generate endless variations, but that personal touch that we have to have in these campaign management is really, really important to get the best results. I think one of the difficulties that we had in the early adoption of certain campaigns like Performance Max was that black box element. Google are taking some big steps and big strides away from that and giving us more information to be able to view search terms, which we previously weren't able to see. So being able to dive deep into that data and find out what search terms people are searching for and what's triggering your ads is really important from our point of view as well to go through and analyze too. So moving on to Meta. So Meta is sort of going down the same sort of route in terms of the delivery. So their biggest focus is the Advantage Plus suite. So I would take this with a pinch of salt. Test them is really, really important to test rather than just going all out and applying these into your campaigns because it might not have the intended impact. So it's really, really important from our point of view to ensure that we're feeding the system with clearly defined goals. So when we speak to our clients, it's really important to ensure that what we're providing into the system is something that it is in line with their business goals. So whether it's a percentage increase in sales or to generate 100 new members, we need to feed that information back into their campaign so they can excel. And then we've got your creative excellence as well. So particularly within Meta, the creatives is going to be the area that really has the biggest impact on campaign performance. So we need to make sure that we're focused on briefing the compelling videos, images, and also telling the brand stories as well. So AI alone can't do this. It really, really requires the personal touch that I mentioned before. And then interpreting the outputs as well. So historically, one of the things that took us a lot of time with managing these campaigns is exporting the information into an Excel spreadsheet and then analyzing all of that information. So having this information within Meta Ads and being able to analyze this in the system, it gives us the ability to see this data a lot quickly and clearer as well. So moving on to Microsoft Ads. So Microsoft Ads is slightly different. They do have their AI campaigns that are running, but one of the biggest things that's inside this their sort of ecosystem is Copilot. So being able to have those conversational insights, so speaking to Copilot and saying what happened over the last 7 days or what happened in the last 30 days compared to the previous year, rather than us having to deep dive into the data, we do have that information to be able to have that conversation with Copilot. So it takes less time for us to be able to go through that data. Then we've got the streamlined ad creation as well. So tools like the Ad Studio helps us find and create and manage those creative assets across all of your different campaigns. And then finally, the predictive audiences. This is one of the things that's really popping up, and what we're trying to utilize as much as possible with our current campaigns is utilizing those the audiences, where Microsoft Ads will basically try and target that audience and then go out of the realms based on your ad content, your landing page, all of that content. They can then go out of then you might have an audience that is exhausted. You might want to go out of the realms and find some more people who are likely to convert further down the line. So I think it's really, really important at this point is to make sure that you're not going all out and just implementing AI solutions, because it will run away with it. You need that personal touch there. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I would take away from this.
Cool. Thank you, Jay. I think that's a really, I know kind of questions to the end, but I'll jump in with one now. I guess it is that kind of, we were talking about this before, was around the balance between allowing AI to get the benefits of AI and the speed and the automation, but also still keeping that kind of human touch and not letting things run away. So is that how you've seen it in the past, and you can continue to see that happening?
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to make sure that if you are implementing these campaigns or any of these AI solutions, is you take a lot of it with a pinch of salt. They will make mistakes. You'll know if you use ChatGPT or any other AI chat model, they will typically, in some cases, they might not give the right answer. And it's also important that these systems also don't know your brand story. They don't know what your ultimate goal is. So it's important to make sure that you're not just so heavily reliant on AI, in which we're not as well, that you're using it as a guide and some assistance, but you're not so heavily reliant on it.
Brilliant. Thank you. So next, we're going to go into the other side of that coin. Really, is what is the impact of AI on the search engines and your ad performance, and what is it that's kind of the user behavior? How is that affecting your ads? So we talked about kind of actually the management of ads, and now we're talking about the kind of how that is, what that means for your user experience. So first off, I just want to fire off a quick poll, just asking, how do you think AI will affect paid media, your paid media ROI in 2026? So that should go live now in the chat. So do you see it increasing return on investment? Do you see it getting better? Do you see it decreasing? Or do you actually see no effect or small change, because this is just a storm we're going to weather over time? So I'll give a few seconds just for people to respond on that. Okay, so increasing, it seems to be winning, which is good. That's all positive group. Yeah. So no effect. I think, yeah, I definitely understand why people might feel that actually there could be no effect on this, and obviously potentially decreasing. Yeah, obviously this is all risk there is, so I can understand there's some risk in that. So brilliant. Okay, so yeah, about 71% increase, 14% decrease, and 14% no effect. So yeah, I think that's a good response. Thank you. So from an ads perspective, from a search engine perspective, ads are in AI search are coming or already here in some cases. But we know that this is an area that obviously search engines are looking to grow into. So ads in AI overviews and AI mode. So Google is already trialing to include those ads, as we've just mentioned. However, one of the challenges we have at the moment is there's no real kind of solid data to track the performance of those ads that are appearing specifically in those areas. Obviously, Google are kind of trying to report on some of that data. They're merging it in with other parts of your kind of tracking at the moment, but there's not a great way of doing that. It's definitely an area we see improving going forward. Google will say use broad match, Performance Max, AI Max. But as kind of me and Jay was just kind of mentioning there, they would say this because they basically want you to give all the control over to them, and then they can then run away with that spend. So we will take that with a pinch of salt, but always test anything. That's not to say it can't work, but make sure you're testing that rather than just assuming that trusting Google just to take away that campaign management. And then how user behavior is affecting your ad performance. I think that's another area we wanted to review. It is. So ultimately, we see it as being less keyword driven. Users now are, they might not know what they're looking for when they start looking. They may have less of those kind of keywords that you would focus on. So we're seeing kind of less keyword, and kind of related to that is more because it's becoming more conversational. Search is moving from kind of ask something and click a link to a conversational investigation to reach a conclusion. You're asking a few more questions before you get to that endpoint. Rather than assuming you know that endpoint straight away. So in some ways you could see that potentially as being slightly even earlier in that journey, that initial ideation, where people are kind of starting to use search engines and chat tools. But ultimately with that kind of second part, conversational investigations to reach a conclusion, we still kind of expect and assume that they're going to click a link at that point they are. So it's still going to get them to that point where they click. But overall, we do see less clicks coming from search engines, or from paid ads. And because answers to questions appears directly within the search engines, which will mean less click-throughs overall. Now, I've underlined the word overall there because this is kind of what we're seeing, or what the data's telling us, what the reports are telling us. That's kind of like a batched piece of information. It's just kind of all aggregated to say overall clicks are going down. But we're all individuals. We all have different campaigns. We all have different targets. So that doesn't necessarily mean the overall means that specifically some of your campaigns might actually improve. Some of your campaigns might drop. So we're going to talk about things like less clicks, but that's just at the moment. That's what they're saying as a general overall point. Don't assume that every ad. So and just kind of to push on from that a little bit. If someone's searching for when were the pyramids built, it's going to be really simple. They're not going to click a link. They're just going to kind of get the answer in chat. If someone's investigating how to renovate a room, they're going to at some point start looking for suppliers. They're going to start clicking things. So depending on what they're looking for, it's going to change if they're going to click. So I just wanted to kind of emphasize that point, that less clicks doesn't necessarily mean less clicks for everything. But one thing to say there is there will be more, your users, your potential members will be more informed. So with the support of the AI overviews and chat, they'll come to you more prepared. They would have seen the options. They would have maybe asked a few questions. They'll come to your, even when they do click through, they will be more informed about your service, your offering, or what solution they're looking for. So just keep that in mind when it comes to actually the landing pages. And I was hesitant to put this in because it's always the coming of voice in interactions has always been kind of heralded, but the fact it's moving more to conversational input. The platforms like Microsoft and Google are saying that voice is going to become more kind of prolific going forward. So just keep that in mind again. So speaking of kind of Microsoft and Google, we just wanted to kind of say what are they saying at the moment. So Liz Reed, Vice President and Head of Google Search. So back in August, she was talking about organic, and she was saying click volume from Google Search has been relatively stable year on year, and average click quality has increased. So again, talk about increased click quality. Obviously, you got to take things with a pinch of salt. Like what's the data? What are they comparing against? A lot changed in the last 2 years. But the second point, which I thought was slightly more interesting, was actually she only mentioned last week, was that some queries may see fewer ad clicks, but overall query volume is rising. So there's more usage in that sense, more volume actually happening, keeping that performance relatively stable. So they're kind of saying yes, fewer clicks, maybe as a percentage, but the volume is rising. So that's kind of where they're sitting at the moment. And then Microsoft don't have maybe as much of a voice in this. They do have documents and a really long, interesting read around the new search advertising landscapes, a PDF they launched a little while back. And it's saying here that relevancy for ads is 25% better, which makes sense if people are putting more information into their chat, into asking questions. The ads are more relevant because they're actually clear on what they're looking for. And they're also saying that 50% 53% higher likelihood of purchase. That does continue in the next 30 minutes. It does. And for me, I kind of read that as again, they're more informed, they're more likely to take action when they do click through. So yeah, so I just thought that was some interesting kind of feedback from the two kind of platforms. But just to say, as I've already mentioned, your click-through rate, we do expect that to decrease. We do, but don't panic, I guess is a kind of the theme here. Is adapting your strategy will allow you to still drive that return on investment from your ads. All the things we talked about before about kind of changing the way you manage your ads. So yeah, if you left them running as they are, I do think we probably would assume that there'll be a decrease, but that doesn't mean you can't adapt and grow through some of the things we talked about today. And search engines are still a major tool for people to discover you. I've got some stats a little bit later down in regards to kind of search versus chat, but search is still a #1 way of people discovering things. So and Google in particular aren't going to want to lose that kind of that place in the market. And just a bit of anecdotal data, like obviously we talk to across the industry, we talk to different suppliers, different people that are kind of closer to Microsoft and closer to Google than we are. And no one's talking doom and gloom here. They're seeing it as positive. They're seeing it as opportunity to increase. They're seeing it so, and hopefully from the feedback we've seen on a short poll here, people are thinking similar things. This isn't a doom and gloom. This isn't a cliff edge that we're talking about. This is actually just a change we adapt to, and actually potentially will give us more opportunity. So that's just kind of something we're seeing in the market, in the areas we talk. And as I've already mentioned, Google and Bing are saying query volume and intent is higher, even if click-through rate is lower. So yeah, it's all relatively positive in that sense. It is, but obviously these are the things we keep an eye on all the time. One of the things I wanted to cover today was just, will ChatGPT pull the trigger on ads? We're talking at the moment about kind of managing in current platforms like Google as being the market, sort of dominating the market. But actually, there's a question out there, like, what if ChatGPT launched ads? Would it suddenly completely become a massive competitor to Google? So the short answer is no one really knows at this stage, because they haven't, obviously only maybe 1 or 2 people might know if actually this is a real thing. They're going to launch it in next year. But so I decided to ask ChatGPT to see what it thought. And it said the likelihood of OpenAI launching is actually quite high, 70 to 8%. It gave me a lot more information in the chat, but it talked about kind of how they're seeing job adverts out there, talking about paid media platforms, and there's certain articles of mentioning it. So there's actually a high chance that there's some sort of paid platform. But then I asked it, actually, what impact will that have against Google? And it actually says a moderate to low impact. It does, just primarily because they see Google as such a strong player in the market. Actually, their ads platform is such an evolved platform as well. It's not just a simple kind of launch some ads and you're done sort of thing. So in 2026 in particular, they're saying it believes, and I kind of agree with it, that it's not going to be kind of a complete switch over to Google's not going to drop off again on a bit of a cliff edge. So yeah, that's kind of where we see where kind of ChatGPT, if they did launch a platform for ads, would go. But one thing to mention there is, if they did launch that, one of the things that we believe in is that first mover advantage. So those who move first will reap the biggest gain, and we've seen this before in previous campaign types and Performance Max and things like that back in the day when it first came out. Was typically when these new channels launch, it's the early adopters who see that the greatest return on investment they do. While the channels are still figuring things out, plus there's less competition. Their costs are usually lower and the reach is probably higher. And as I say, there's less competition on that in that kind of new ad space there is. So definitely worth considering. Being an early adopter can bring that huge return, and worth considering for 2026. Is there a way of carving out some budget if or when kind of ChatGPT or potentially another platform kind of launch something new, or even Copilot? Obviously, Copilot's and Microsoft Bing are kind of already in that space anyway. So yeah, definitely just something to consider there, we believe. And something that I always bang the drum on, as someone that's kind of built many websites over the last few years, is conversion rate optimization. We're talking about kind of if click-through rate is down but intent is up, then it says, kind of instantly says to me that your ability to convert it needs to be the best it can be. This obviously will probably be something that you should be working on for a long time now, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of raise that each visitor to your site is more important than ever, so don't lose them through a confusing website. And shameless plug, but I know a team that can do that if you need any help. So yeah, conversion rate optimization, just as important as ever. And yeah, you should be looking at kind of how we can convert all of those high intent click-throughs. Next, Joe is going to talk about kind of, okay, some more practical stuff. What should we start doing now?
Well, thanks, Chris. So yeah, there's also been lots of information that we've shared, both about the ads management side and the changes in search, changes in performance. So yeah, we want to just give you some actionable steps that you can start working through, especially when you're doing your 2026 planning, to kind of make sense of this and what you should be focusing on. So the first one is just to sort of start the conversation. Talk to your marketing team or your marketing agency, whoever's running things, and just share any sort of concerns or questions you might have about the changes that are coming. And I think that is the biggest opportunity, is just to shared learnings. Everything's moving so quickly, and everybody's trying to keep up with the latest advancements. So the more you can sort of express that you're wanting to maybe start experimenting or know more, communicate your business goals and some of the core sort of fundamentals that sometimes it can be assumed that everybody's aligned on something like that, but sometimes it might not be the case. So go back to basics, have as many conversations as possible, and you can start building your AI strategy from there. The second, which Chris kind of touched on, is really don't panic. There's lots of opportunity here, and the marketing fundamentals and the online marketing fundamentals still stand. So there's nothing in here really that we're saying this is the big game-changing strategy that everybody's going to be doing. And there's opportunities and there's advantages there that you should start looking at, but keep going back to those basics. When we're talking about more of the search space in terms of organic, Google, is still a massive player, as we talked about. So it needs to not be forgotten, and keep doing the core things that you might be doing with your SEO, like publishing fresh content, making it really relevant to your user. Think about your EEAT, because Google still really values all of that, and so does your user. So yeah, don't forget the fundamentals. And we've actually got another webinar coming up where we're going to be talking more about organic, which we'll talk about later.
Yes.
The third point here is probably worth doing an audit of your data. So we've talked a lot about first-party data today and how you can make the most of it and the opportunity there. So the AI technology within all of these platforms is only going to be as good as the high-quality data that it's given. So maybe doing an audit and reviewing your CRM data, making sure everything's accurate and as complete as it possibly could be, and then see how there might be ways to sync it with some channels that you're already using. For this to be intentional and transparent with your AI usage, so make sure all of your team working on your marketing, or whether it's internally or externally, make sure everybody's aware of and talking about the different ways that they're using it, and informed about the latest data privacy laws, and make sure you're giving everybody sort of ethical guidance in how they should be using it. But also tying into that, with any AI that you are using, remember to sort of make sure that it feels human and authentic to your audience. So that's that balance we were talking about earlier. Next is to really have a creative vision and focus on storytelling. So while AI can help with loads of automation, speeding things up, lots of data analysis and dynamically serving ads, what we as human marketers should really be leaning into is the creative element. Obviously, AI can generate creatives for us, but it's only going to be as good as the original that's given, the brand story, the initial creative idea. So the more sort of time and effort that hopefully you should have, with some of the other things being picked up, is to really get that done well, and then use the AI to kind of speed up the generation process from there. And I think the more sort of emotional sort of brand stories that you can put out into your ads, that's going to give you that competitive advantage as well. And as Chris mentioned, don't neglect your landing pages and your conversion rate optimization. We're going to get much more high intent users coming through to your landing pages from ads and coming through to your site. So you really just need to start auditing all of your landing pages that you might be using, see if there might be gaps for new landing pages that are going to be a lot more aligned with user search intent, and prioritize CRO definitely in 2026 if you're not already, to really maximize that opportunity. And sort of once you've audited all of your existing creatives, your landing pages, your sites, and your campaigns, this is where you'll be in a good position to start trying out some new campaign types or some new features. So definitely recommend testing rather than just kind of going all in and giving AI free rein, as we talked about. But have that discussion with your marketing team about how we can sort of look at lower risk campaign types or features like AI Max, using it on an existing campaign that maybe converts really well already, and just get comfortable with the new technology. And I think just a gradual sort of test and learn process is always best. And finally, just be ready to jump on new ad channels. Again, Chris mentioned about planning your budget. So now is the time to kind of, it will be quite a quick launch, I imagine, when these ads happen. So stay close to the information that's out there, as we will be doing already. And if you can be sort of confident and be that early adopter, whether it's ads in ChatGPT or Copilot, there's going to be lots of opportunity there as on cheaper CPC. So yeah, just be ready next year.
Cool. Thank you very much, Joe. So that's the end of the presentation today. So thank you everyone for kind of taking part. We're going to go through the Q&A kind of part now. I see there's a couple of questions in there already, but please do drop any questions in if you would like them answered. So going from the top, so Susie is asking, how can we troubleshoot an AI run ad campaign if performance suddenly drops and we have less manual controls? So this kind of goes back to that point around kind of letting Google and Microsoft and Meta run away with the campaigns a little bit. So yeah, so any sort of advice there, maybe Jay, on kind of how we just keep track of that performance?
Yeah, so I think for this one, I think it's less about looking at what the output is. It's more about what you're inputting back into the system. So I think we've mentioned multiple times about how important it is to input first party data and to make sure those creatives are fresh and those and the creators really tell a story about your brand as well. And I think those are the first things that I would definitely have a look at. So for example, yeah, making sure that your connection between your CRM and that particular campaign is still there. We've seen it in the past where offline conversion uploads are no longer being passed through into that campaign and performance drops. So it's really important to make sure that is continuing, because the bidding really relies on that information being passed back into the account. Regarding the creative side of things, I think if you've not updated your creatives for maybe a month or maybe 3 months, yeah, I think it's really important to review those creatives. You might have some creative fatigue that you really need to try and have a look at. So refreshing that stuff inside the account is going to be really important. And then also, yeah, just making sure that your audience signals are all okay as well. It's really important to make sure that you're importing all of that CRM data. So if you've got your customer match list that's no longer being updated, it's important to tell the system that. So I think those are the things that I would look at in terms of troubleshooting and really trying to have a look at what the input is into the system rather than what the output is.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that there's an old kind of adage around like reporting is like rubbish in, rubbish out sort of thing. And I guess it's the same thing with this AI automation is you're putting rubbish. If you're not putting clear, clean, sort of accurate information in, the AI is just going to produce potentially not very good results. So brilliant. Thank you. So Faith has asked, how do you think this is going to affect ad competitiveness amongst businesses with like-for-like offerings and audiences? Will AI maintain the current advantage businesses can have, or is there a possibility AI-driven audiences headlines could be shared between businesses? And I think that sharing point's a really interesting one, because that was one of the first things that when AI first came, it's kind of how is my data being shared and are other people seeing this information? So yeah, so I'm not sure if who wants, with regards to the competitiveness, I don't know if anyone has any particular thoughts on that.
I suppose my only thought on this one is just to really go back to your business's USPs, and though you might have a very similar like-to-like offering with other businesses, and there is that risk of sort of crossover with your competitors. I think doing that competitor analysis to say, where can I maybe find some differences, just even if it's just in your tone of voice with your brand, and going back to those kind of basics, I think will help with just making yourself stand out, and then also making sure that you're generating plenty of content on your social platforms and giving outside of ads, creating more across the network, and whether it's blogs and whether it's sort of social content to get that across. And I guess that's more signals that's ultimately going to play into everything that gets fed into the ad platforms eventually.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's interesting as well around the audience possibilities of, like, say, if AI is kind of generating ad campaigns and titles and headlines, is it using what it learns from other organizations to direct to yours? Yeah, like say, if you focus on your own kind of USPs, make sure they're always aligned in there. But that's obviously from a click-through rate perspective, then maybe certain headlines. I don't think there is probably a definitive answer on that, whether AI will share information between campaign types across different organizations. My assumption would be that it wouldn't, because performance would be kind of contained within your own campaigns. It would be in your own account. But yeah, it's definitely an area to keep an eye on with regards to that sharing of what works in a particular industry, and are they sharing that advantage across different organizations?
Yeah, I think going on to the point of, I think it's important that that personal touch again is being creative. Personally, obviously, if you're so heavily reliant on AI in order to do the creatives and in the headlines and descriptions and stuff like that, having that personal touch gives you the ability to be able to go, right, okay, actually, I'm not going to follow what the business has already got. So I think that's really important too.
Yeah, brilliant. Hopefully that answered the question, Faith. Please feel free to sort of mark something else if it's not 100% clear. Next, we've got Dennis. So if AI overviews and chatbots are answering user queries directly, what KPIs metrics should we be reviewing to measure success of our ads visibility? So yeah, measuring that performance. Anyone want to take that one?
I think for this, one of the things that I would personally look at the most here is if you're getting a lot of visibility on chatbots, so ChatGPT or Gemini or AI Max. I think one of the things that I would imagine to be a big knock-on effect is your brand search. So if you're popping up a lot in there and you're being recognized as a reputable source for some information, then people should come back round to search for your brand. So that's one of the things that I would really try and analyze. Just analyze over maybe a 6-month period and see what your brand search looks like in terms of the volume, and then comparing that to the previous date range. So I think that's one of the things. But I think going back to the point, I think it's almost too early to tell to know exactly what is going on. So Search Console, from an organic point of view, Search Console is starting to show search queries from these chat models, which is going to be really important. It's still being sort of drip fed out into people who are actually able to see them. So in some cases we haven't been able to actually see that yet. So we don't really have like a definitive answer on that.
I guess as well, it feels like that, as we mentioned earlier, that likes of Google and Microsoft are still trialing different ad formats, different ad placements, different ways of delivering ads. And I think that's probably why there isn't like a really clean and clear suite of reporting information on this, because they probably keep changing it in themselves. So they're probably looking for that stability and measuring it internally to know what's working before they kind of share that kind of really deep dive information out to everyone. That would be a kind of a half an assumption. That's me being generous maybe to these platforms. But yeah, I still think that, I should say, it's still an evolving space. So I guess at the moment it's kind of looking for the signals around what you're doing, what we already have, rather than necessarily having a really clear, direct kind of you've appeared in AI search results for these terms under these things. It's not quite there yet. So yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Final question from Gemma is, what would you recommend for companies wanting to scale their ads using AI and test multiple versions of copy, etc., while maintaining our brand voice and avoid our ads looking the same as everyone else's? So yeah,
I can touch on that. I suppose it's similar to what we were talking before about finding the balance and looking at USPs and leaning more into that. But I think definitely the creative storytelling that I was talking about earlier, that's really important. That's where you can kind of really go back to sort of marketing basics and really have fun with it. And I think in terms of making sure your brand voice comes across, give it lots of options, but make sure that your original prompt and the copy on your website really everything ties back to your brand. Everything is consistent. Everything talks about your USPs and your the sort of the ethos of your brand. That's what's really going to help you stand out. But I think leaning into the AI to kind of get that scale is where you can have the opportunity, but auditing the impact and still looking at how people are engaging with that creative and freshening up, as Jay mentioned earlier, is going to be important to avoid looking like everybody else is, but also avoid that fatigue that we know can happen quite quickly.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. That is the last point on the questions. So just a kind of a quick mention of the next webinar, Joe mentioned earlier, is in December. We're having a little bit of a break, but it's talking about that kind of AI-proof your website and so SEO for membership growth. So talking about the SEO effects of AI and AEO and GEO and all of that. So how will AI impact your organic search performance? What tactics can you use now to appear in those chat kind of answers? Like ChatGPT, and also how do you track performance? Again, performance is another kind of key question there. So yeah, December the 4th, we're going to be following up with an email, so hopefully you can join us for that. And just a few final points of a few links. We're going to be sharing the kind of obviously this presentation for the recording of this. So yeah, if you wanted to kind of benchmark your member recruitment score, so we have a tool that kind of looks at how your recruiting currently works. If you did want to have a quick chat about anything, there's a link there. And then a tool we have for member engagement tracking is Member Metrics. So feel free to take a look at that in the future if that's something, engagement tracking is something that you're interested in. So thank you very much, everyone. And thank you, Jay and Joe, for kind of talking today. So thank you. Goodbye.